There's a difference between loving someone and losing yourself in them. Too often, incredible women shrink, chase, or silence parts of themselves just to hold on to a man who barely sees their worth. Let me be clear, real love doesn't require you to compromise your dignity. If you want a connection that's healthy, passionate, and long-lasting, you have to know your value, and more importantly, you have to act like it. This isn't about playing games. This is about protecting your heart, your standards, and your self-respect. So, let's talk about the 5 things a woman should never do with a man if she wants to keep her power, protect her peace, and attract the kind of love that doesn't make her question her worth. There comes a moment in every woman's life where she's tempted to bend her rules just a little. Whether it's answering a 1 a.m. text because she misses him, forgiving a pattern of behavior because she sees his potential, or pretending she's okay with casual when she craves commitment. The desire for connection can be so strong that it clouds your sense of what's acceptable. But here's the truth. The second you start compromising your standards to hold on to someone, you've already started losing yourself in the process. A lot of women don't realize they're doing it. It begins subtly. Maybe you let a small disrespect slide. He cancels last minute without explanation, and instead of calling it out, you tell yourself he's just busy. Maybe he talks about other women in front of you, and though it stings, you laugh it off to seem cool and unbothered. And every time you let something slide that you wouldn't normally accept, you're sending a silent message, not just to him, but to yourself. My boundaries are flexible when I like someone. Here's what happens when you make that compromise. The dynamic shifts. He begins to realize that your affection is not tied to how he treats you, that he doesn't need to show up fully because you'll be there anyway. And that's when you stop being the prize and start becoming the option. A man may not say it out loud, but he feels it. He can sense when you're more invested than he is. He knows when you're adjusting your standards to make room for his inconsistency. And rather than inspiring him to do better, it often convinces him he doesn't have to. Why would he if you're still giving him access regardless? Now let's be clear, standards are not about being cold, rigid, or difficult. They are not about punishing someone for being imperfect. Standards are about what you value in yourself and how you expect others to treat you. When you abandon those, you're not showing him you're easygoing. You're showing him that you're willing to betray yourself just to keep him around. And that's never attractive. Some women worry that having high standards will scare a man away, and you know what, it might. But the kind of man who walks away because you expect respect, consistency, and honesty is not the kind of man you want in your life. Let him go, because the right man isn't intimidated by your standards, he's inspired by them. He sees them not as a challenge, but as a reflection of your self-worth, and he'll want to meet them because he values you. When you hold to your standards, you do more than filter out the wrong people. You teach the right ones how to treat you. You become someone who commands respect without ever having to demand it. You create a dynamic where mutual effort and emotional safety are the foundation, not a bonus. And most importantly, you remain aligned with who you truly are, even in the presence of someone you deeply desire. There's also a cost to lowering your standards that people don't talk about enough: resentment. When you keep giving to someone who doesn't meet your needs, it slowly chips away at your peace. You may tell yourself it's okay in the moment, but deep down, a part of you keeps score. And over time, that resentment starts to seep out in passive comments, in emotional shutdowns, in unmet expectations that were never clearly communicated because you were too afraid of rocking the boat. You deserve more than breadcrumbs. You deserve more than being someone's maybe. You deserve to be loved in a way that feels consistent, clear, and secure. But that kind of love only shows up when you stop accepting anything less. It doesn't come when you're busy managing someone else's potential. It doesn't show up when you're justifying why his silence is okay or convincing yourself that you don't really need what you know deep down you do. And I get it. The idea of losing someone because you stood your ground is terrifying. But the alternative is far worse. Staying in something that chips away at your confidence piece by piece. You can't build lasting love on top of broken boundaries. You can't be chosen properly if you're always choosing him over your own needs. There's strength in walking away from anything that requires you to abandon yourself. There's beauty in choosing your peace over temporary affection. And there is incredible power in realizing that your standards are not negotiable. They are a reflection of the love you have for yourself. The man who's meant for you will not only respect your standards, he'll appreciate them because they tell him that you know your value. They tell him that you're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. And that kind of woman, the one who honors herself before anyone else, is unforgettable. So the next time you feel tempted to text back after being ignored or settle for behavior that leaves you feeling empty, pause. Ask yourself, am I staying true to me or am I abandoning myself for a moment of validation? Because the love that's worth having will never require you to question your worth to get it. It will feel clear, consistent, safe. And it starts with you refusing to settle for anything less. There's a very specific kind of heartbreak that comes not from being rejected, but from waiting for someone to finally choose you and realizing they never will. It's subtle, almost quiet. It creeps in slowly, disguised as hope. You convince yourself that if you just show him how amazing you are, if you're patient, if you give more, he'll see it. He'll wake up one day and realize you're everything he's been looking for. But the truth is, no amount of chasing will ever make someone love you the way you deserve to be loved. When a man wants to be with you, you won't have to chase him. You won't have to constantly guess where you stand, analyze every message, or convince yourself that crumbs of attention are a full meal. A man who is choosing you will make it known. He'll be intentional, consistent, clear, not perfect, but present. The problem is, we sometimes confuse effort with desperation. We think persistence is romantic, even when it's one-sided. We think that proving our worth will somehow shift the dynamic. But love doesn't work like that. Real connection doesn't bloom from convincing, it blooms from mutual desire. And if it's not mutual, it's not healthy. You can't chase someone into loving you. You can't text them into commitment. You can't sleep with them enough times for them to change their mind. And you certainly can't contort yourself into the perfect version of who you think they want and expect that to create intimacy. What it actually creates is imbalance. And that imbalance becomes your normal. Suddenly, you're always the one initiating, always waiting, always hoping, and every time you reach out and get nothing in return, you shrink just a little more. That's not love, that's emotional starvation. One of the most dangerous games we play is waiting for potential. We fall for who someone could be, not who they are right now. And we tell ourselves stories that excuse the lack of effort, the inconsistency, the broken promises. He's just not ready. He's been hurt before. He's scared of how much he feels. Maybe all of those things are true, but none of them change the reality that he is not choosing you. And when someone isn't choosing you, you choosing them harder doesn't close that gap. It only widens it. Because here's the hard truth. When you chase someone who's not chasing you, you're not just wasting time, you're training yourself to accept less. You're building an emotional habit of earning love instead of receiving it. And that habit is exhausting. It drains your energy. It clouds your judgment. It erodes your confidence. And worst of all, it blinds you to the people who would choose you because you are too busy trying to win over someone who's already shown you through their actions that they. Letting go of that chase feels like a loss at first. It feels like giving up, but it's not. It's reclaiming your time. It's reclaiming your peace. It's saying, I no longer beg for the bare minimum. Because love isn't supposed to feel like a battle for attention. It's supposed to feel safe, reciprocal, and alive. Think about it. When someone truly wants you, they show up. They don't leave you wondering if they care. They don't keep you in a state of emotional limbo. They don't breadcrumb you with just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to feel secure. And they certainly don't make you feel like you have to fight for space in their life. You are not a backup plan. You are not an option. You are not a placeholder until someone better comes along. But if you keep chasing someone who treats you like that, you begin to believe that's all you're worth. You forget what it feels like to be pursued. You forget what it feels like to be genuinely desired. And that's where resentment grows. And that's where loneliness creeps in, even in the presence of someone you love. Let him go. Let him go if he only calls when it's convenient. Let him go if you're always the one making plans. Let him go if he gives you just enough to keep you close, but never enough to build something real. Let him go if you're always confused about what this is. Love should not feel like anxiety. It should not feel like you're constantly trying to win someone over. The right man won't need convincing. He won't have you doubting your place in his life. He won't let days go by without checking in. He won't disappear and reappear like your feelings are disposable. The right man will choose you not just once, but every single day. And not because you begged him to, but because he sees your value and wants to. The only way to make space for that man is to stop running after the one who doesn't. Stop chasing. Stop hoping someone will change. Start observing who shows up without being asked, who puts in effort without pressure, who makes you feel seen without you having to raise your voice. You can love someone deeply and still walk away. You can miss them and still know they're not right for you. You can wish it had been different and still choose yourself. That's strength, that's growth, that's self-worth in action. So don't chase, don't beg, don't shrink, don't settle. Because the moment you stop trying to convince someone of your value is the moment you finally create room for the one who never needed convincing. There's a dangerous moment in some relationships that doesn't feel dangerous at all. It feels flattering. It feels romantic. It sounds like, "You're amazing. I just wish you were a little more like this." Or, "I love being with you. I just think you'd be even better if you changed that." And because you care, because you want to be close, because you want to be chosen, you start to shift. Not all at once, piece by piece. You start laughing at jokes you don't find funny. You pretend to enjoy things you couldn't care less about. You downplay your ambition so you don't seem too intense. You quiet your opinions so you don't create tension. You shrink the parts of yourself that might seem too much, and overextend the parts that feel more palatable. And little by little, you become a version of yourself that's easier for him to love, but harder for you to recognize. That's the trap. You fall in love with who he is, and he falls in love with who you're becoming. For him, not who you actually are. It starts off innocently enough. Maybe he's not as affectionate as you are, so you learn to stop asking for closeness. Maybe he doesn't really value the same dreams you have, so you start convincing yourself they weren't that important anyway. Maybe he wants someone more quiet, more submissive, more easygoing, so you suppress your voice and your fire just to avoid the friction. You tell yourself it's compromise. You tell yourself it's what couples do. But compromise isn't changing who you are. It's meeting in the middle, not moving all the way to one side. Every time you betray a part of your truth to maintain closeness with someone else, you disconnect from yourself. You become more focused on being chosen than on being authentic. And the longer you do that, the more you start to resent both him and yourself. Because deep down, you know something's wrong. You know you've stopped being fully you. And the cost is enormous. You start living with a quiet discomfort, a gnawing feeling that you're not fully seen, not fully heard, not fully appreciated. And you're right, because how can someone love the real you if you've hidden her? How can someone meet your needs if you've buried them to meet theirs? When you give up your identity to fit his ideal, you're not building love, you're building an illusion. You're building something fragile, something conditional, something that only survives if you keep performing. And the second you stop, the second you speak your truth or reclaim your space, the whole dynamic begins to crack. Because it was never built on authenticity. It was built on accommodation. You don't need to become someone else to be worthy of love. The right relationship won't require you to be less passionate, less expressive, less bold. It won't punish you for your truth. It won't ask you to dim your light so someone else can shine more comfortably. The right person will be drawn to your fire, not afraid of it. But here's what makes this so hard. We think that love means adapting, that if we love someone enough, we'll mold ourselves to fit them. And yes, love takes growth. It takes effort, but it should never ask you to erase yourself. The minute love becomes about conformity, it stops being love and starts being control. Subtle, emotional control masked as compatibility. You are not meant to be edited by someone else's preferences. You're not meant to be a project. You're not meant to be molded into a fantasy. You're meant to be met, fully, boldly, truthfully. And if a man can't meet you there, if he only stays interested when you're wearing the mask he likes best, then that isn't love. That's performance, and performances are exhausting. You deserve the kind of relationship where you don't have to second guess your personality, where you don't have to suppress your dreams, where your tears aren't dismissed as drama, and your voice isn't labeled as too loud or too needy. You deserve to be celebrated for the fullness of who you are, not tolerated, not managed. If you feel like you're constantly trying to keep his interest by being what he wants, pause. Ask yourself, do I even like who I am becoming in this relationship? If the answer is no, that's your signal. Love isn't supposed to make you feel like a stranger to yourself. The right man doesn't want a version of you that's edited for his comfort. He wants the real you, the one who's honest about her needs, unapologetic about her goals, clear about her values. That woman is magnetic. That woman doesn't chase, she attracts. And when she walks in her truth, she gives the man beside her the permission to do the same. That's what creates real connection. Not control, not people pleasing, but presence, realness, vulnerability without fear of rejection. Don't be afraid to take off the mask. Don't be afraid to say, this is who I am, and I won't apologize for it. Because if you have to abandon your identity to be loved, it's not love, it's survival. And you're not here to survive your relationship, you're here to thrive in it, to choose you. Every time, loudly, boldly. And if someone walks away because you refuse to be anyone but yourself, let them. You didn't lose something, you preserved your soul, and nothing is more attractive than a woman who refuses to disappear just to be desired. There is a silence that doesn't come from peace, but from fear. A silence that says, if I speak up, I might lose him. A silence that carries the weight of unspoken needs, suppressed desires, and quiet disappointments. It sounds like, I don't want to seem needy, or if he really cared, he'd just know. So you swallow your truth. You stay quiet. You hope he reads your mind, or at the very least, notices your discomfort. And when he doesn't, you tell yourself your needs are too much, too inconvenient, too likely to push him away. But silence doesn't protect love. It corrodes it. When you stay silent about your needs, you're not keeping the peace. You're abandoning your voice. You're teaching someone that your comfort is negotiable, that your happiness is flexible, and that you will endure almost anything just to avoid conflict. And over time, that silence doesn't just create distance, it creates resentment. Because you can't keep giving while constantly suppressing. You can't keep pouring out without being filled. You can't keep pretending things are fine when they're not. Your needs are not a burden. They are a map. They show who you are, what matters to you, what makes you feel safe, loved, and valued. They are not weaknesses to hide. They are truths to honor. But when you hide them to preserve someone else's comfort, you make yourself small. And love cannot breathe in small spaces. It's easy to confuse silence with strength, to think that biting your tongue makes you emotionally mature, that not rocking the boat means you're the bigger person. But maturity isn't silence. It's honesty, delivered with grace. It's saying, this matters to me, not with blame, but with clarity. It's trusting that your needs are valid and that speaking them out loud doesn't make you high maintenance, it makes you self-aware. You can't expect someone to meet needs you've never expressed. You can't fault someone for not showing up in ways you never asked for, and yet many people do. They hold silent expectations, hoping someone will magically fulfill them, and then feel quietly devastated when they don't. That's not partnership, that's performance. And it leads to a dynamic where one person is constantly guessing and the other is constantly disappointed. Real connection requires transparency. It requires the courage to say, I feel disconnected when you don't call, or I need more reassurance in this relationship, or even I want to feel like a priority, not an afterthought. These statements aren't attacks, they're invitations. Invitations for deeper intimacy, for honest conversation, for shared growth. If someone walks away because you told the truth about your needs, they were never capable of meeting them in the first place. Let them. Because the man who's right for you will not be intimidated by your honesty. He won't shame you for needing emotional connection, consistency, or commitment. He won't weaponize your vulnerability. He'll thank you for giving him the roadmap to love you better. We're often taught that love means never having to ask. That if someone really cares, they'll just know. But that's not love, that's fantasy. Even the most well-intentioned partner cannot read your mind. You have to be willing to speak it. And yes, that's scary. Yes, it makes you feel exposed. But it's also the only way to build something real. Every time you silence yourself, you send the message, my needs don't matter here. And eventually that message doesn't just affect how he treats you, it affects how you see yourself. You begin to believe that asking for more is wrong, that emotional hunger is a sign of weakness, that contentment means staying quiet and grateful for whatever little you're given. And that's how you settle, not because you wanted to, but because you convinced yourself you don't. You're allowed to ask for more. You're allowed to say, this isn't working for me. You're allowed to draw a line between what nourishes you and what depletes you, because love is not about who can tolerate the most discomfort. It's about who can create the safest space for truth to be spoken, even when it's messy. It's also worth remembering that the right man wants to know how to love you well. He wants to know what makes you feel secure, what helps you feel cherished, what actions say, I'm here, louder than words ever could. He's not afraid of your needs. He's grateful for the clarity. Because it means he doesn't have to guess. It means you trust him with your heart. And that kind of honesty builds a relationship that can weather anything. So stop shrinking. Stop silencing. Stop hoping that silence will get you what only your voice can. Your needs are not a test. They're not traps. They're not proof of your flaws. They're proof of your humanity. And when you speak them with confidence, you don't just stand up for what you want. You teach others how to stand beside you with respect, with intention, and with care. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be met. And you deserve a love that doesn't just accept your truth, but honors it.